Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. So in the last 1 week, I filled up my gas tank, I went to buy groceries, and I also reviewed my investment portfolio. And frankly, the things I saw in each of these 3 points, they have shocked me to my bones. And I'm sure you can relate to it as well. So if you've been trying to connect the dots, you are in the perfect spot because by the end of this video, I'll tell you what exactly is happening in the world and how it affects your pockets. So if you've not been watching the news, there's a war going on in Iran. And you don't need to be a policy expert or a war strategist to understand how that affects your pocket, because by the end of this video, I'll tell you exactly how that affects your pocket. So let's get into it. So first things first, let's do a quick recap. On the 28th of February 2026, the US and Israel launched Operation Epic Fury on Iran. And Iran responded by sending missiles to attack US and Israeli bases, and the entire Middle East is now engulfed in crisis with no end in sight. Now, you might be wondering, why does a war thousands of kilometers away affect your gas bill in, say, Toronto or in Vancouver? Well, 2 words: Strait of Hormuz. Maybe 3 words: Strait of Hormuz. Now, picture a narrow channel of water, which is about 33 kilometers at its tiniest point, sitting between Iran and the Arabian Peninsula. That tiny stretch of ocean is basically the world's gas station checkout line, and about 20% of the world's crude oil passes through that narrow channel. Iran's Revolutionary Guards, they've warned shippers to stay away from the Strait of Hormuz. And what has happened now is oil traders around the world are finding it difficult to buy and sell and even move crude from one point of the world to the next. Now, if you look at the Brent crude oil prices, which is the benchmark against which crude oil prices around the world is being tracked, prices have increased sharply from $67, $70 to as high as $100 and $120 a barrel. Now, in Canada, you might be wondering, we produce crude oil. Why is it even expensive, even if we produce crude oil here in Canada? That is because the oil we produce here in Canada is priced at global prices. What that means is if the Brent crude oil price is as high as $110 a barrel, any crude oil we produce here in Canada will be priced at the global prices, regardless of what the local situation here in Canada is. If we have peace here in Canada, it doesn't matter. As long as the Brent crude oil prices are still high, the oil we produce will be priced that high. So here's a quick riddle for you. Canada is actually one of the biggest oil producers in the world. We have oil sands in Alberta, we have offshore fields in Newfoundland, and we're not buying our oil from Iran. So why are gas prices going up? And that is because of something I said earlier. Oil prices are priced globally. So think of it this way. Wheat is grown all around Canada, but the price of a loaf of bread is still influenced by what wheat costs on the global stage. So essentially, Canada has little capacity to influence what is going on with the crude oil prices globally. We are mostly a price taker, which means whatever the global prices are is what we are going to take to use to price the crude oil that we produce here in Canada. And so when the global oil prices shoot up because of a war in Iran, the prices that Canadians have to pay at the pump also goes up too. That is how the global market works. And the numbers are even more striking because before the war, we in Ontario were buying gas for $1.25 or even $1.35 for a litre of gas. And now it's around $1.60, $1.70 for a litre of gas. And this is the same trend across all the provinces in Canada, even going as high as $2 a litre in Vancouver. So you might be thinking, okay, because these prices are high, I'm going to drive my car a lot less. But let me tell you the fact, it doesn't really work like that, because everything you need, everything that you order online is tied to gas. So all the things you get off Amazon, the deliveries you get from IKEA, they are all driven by trucks which get gas. And so the higher the cost of fueling those trucks that are used to deliver the items to your grocery stores, to your delivery warehouses, the higher those costs, the higher it will be for your pockets. Now let's talk about groceries, because groceries, there is sticking points that affect every single household here in Canada. Food inflation had dropped to around 5.4%, and it was largely expected to continue in March and in April, but that is highly unlikely to continue because of the war in Iran. So there are a few connections that happened between the war in Iran and the grocery prices you see at the stores. So let's get into that for now. First, supply cost. The food supply industry is very, very energy intensive. I mean, crops need to be planted with heavy machinery that runs on diesel. They need to be harvested, transported, stored, processed, packaged, shipped, all of which requires energy before it gets to the grocery stores. Now, when the energy required to process all of this from the ground to the stores gets very, very expensive, the price of the end product, which is what you see in the grocery stores, is also going to get very expensive. The second connection is shipping disruptions. And this is with regards to fresh produce. Fresh produce, like we know, they have a very short shelf life. And if there's any disruption in the global shipping network, these changes in the freight lanes, they would affect the prices that would be attached to the cost of delivery of these fresh products to the grocery stores. And the Strait of Hormuz is a very, very critical one because it's not just oil that goes through the Strait of Hormuz. Fresh products also move from the Middle East through the other shipping lanes to the rest of the world. So if this shipping lane is just disrupted, then the cost of fresh products will become even more expensive. Now, the third connection between the grocery prices and the war in the Middle East is fertilizer prices. And this is a very sneaky one because it's not something that you'll find a lot more common. If there's a disruption in the Middle Eastern fertilizer industry complex, it becomes difficult to ship fertilizers from the Middle East to the rest of the world. And countries that need fertilizers, they would then have to start scrambling for limited quantities of fertilizers, even at higher prices. And so when the cost of fertilizers go up, that means an input cost has gone up. So the cost to get transferred down the product line, down the supply chain line to the final cost of the product that hits the grocery stores. So food inflation is something that we might be grappling with for quite a while because of the input cost has gone up in the supply chain channel. Spring and summer are the ideal travel season. And to be honest, this war couldn't have come in at a much terrible time because we're already seeing higher prices for tickets in the next couple of weeks, even down to a couple of months. Airlines, they run on jet fuel, which is a derivative of crude oil. And when crude oil prices are this high, the consequences means the things that you get from crude oil will also be high. Now, we're already seeing this in the local market where airlines are reacting to the high jet fuel cost as well as to the uncertainty in planning for these costs. So prepare your minds. If you're planning to travel in the next couple of months, prepare your mind to spend extra dollars on your tickets. And it's also not the cost of flying. The routes that airlines have to take to get you from point A to point B in a safe manner has also been disrupted. Air travel to the Middle East has also been disrupted, and as well as goods coming in from the Middle East via air travel and other means of transportation has been disrupted. So imagine you're trying to get from Europe to Asia with a stopover in the Middle East, maybe a stopover in Dubai or in Saudi or whatever. That travel option is no longer there because it is not safe to travel through the Middle East with bombs going off in the air every single time. And the extra cost of routing yourself away from the Middle East to a much safer travel route is also something that airlines will pass on to the customers. So if you're planning travel this season, prepare your minds for higher travel costs. And if you had planned to go to the Middle East for vacation, if you plan to do any tourism activities somewhere in the Middle East, this is the time to reconsider your travel options to somewhere that is much more safer and where the travel is a lot more predictable. Now let's talk about something that might feel a little bit distant, but it very much affects every single one of us, especially those who have investments here in Canada. If you have investments in your TFSA, your RRSP, or if you're even invested in the market altogether, you would have noticed that this war has taken a hit on your portfolio. Now, since the war began, global stocks have dropped by at least 5.5% since this conflict started. With the Asian stocks, they've been hit the hardest. Why? Investors are scared of two things. One, they are scared of higher inflation. They're also scared of higher interest rates. And the uncertainty of the war in the Middle East is driving these two factors. Now, before we walk through this, let's do a quick recap. Interest rates is basically the cost of borrowing, the cost at which you get money from any financial institution. So if you're looking to buy a car, if you're looking to buy a house and you want to borrow money to do that, the lower the interest rates, the better it is for you. So when these rates get more expensive, the cost of the things you want to buy becomes even more expensive. Now, here's how the chain works. When oil prices go up, the cost of things in the market becomes even more expensive. And so inflation rises. Now, when inflation rises, the Bank of Canada will react by raising interest rates to bring things down, to make sure inflation is under control. Now, when rates go up, the cost of borrowing becomes even more expensive. And so regular people and businesses would hesitate before they go and take loans at higher interest rates. Now, if businesses are hesitant to borrow money to expand their activities, then their economic output slows down. And so the stock market will also react because businesses are not producing as much as they should. Then the company valuation will take a hit. So you see the chain between the war in Iran and the stock prices in your TFSA or your RRSP or your retirement portfolio. Now, another thing that's also happening is the unpredictability is causing investors to flee to safety. What that means is risky assets such as stocks or equities, they're seeing a sharp sell down, with investors favoring things like cash or gold, which is a lot more stable against economic volatility. Now, the key economic risk is not the initial shock of the war, rather it is the sustained duration of the conflict. If oil prices remain high for a long period of time, other costs that are tied to oil prices are going to rise. And so the interest rates are going to rise consequently, because the Bank of Canada is going to react to try to get a control on inflation. And so the long-term effect of this war continuing for a long period of time is yet to be seen. And so let's do a quick recap to bring everything we've talked about together. There's a war going on between US, Iran, and Israel, and it's thousands of kilometers away. However, it is affecting us here in Canada in four main channels. Gas prices have gone up because of the higher global crude oil prices. Groceries are also going up because the supply chain cost of moving things from point A to the grocery stores has gone up. Groceries rely on trucks to get things from farm to the grocery stores. So the cost of fueling those trucks and those farm machineries that operate on the farms have also gone up. Now we're getting into travel season, and the major modes of transportation, flights, ships, which for your cruises and cars, they rely on gas, which come from crude oil. So the crude oil prices have gone up, and the cost of fueling your aircraft, the cost of fueling your ships, the cost of fueling your cars have also gone up. And so travel in the next couple of weeks is going to be very expensive. Now, the fourth thing is your investment portfolios is taking a hit because investors are fleeing the market into safety. The unpredictability in the Middle East is causing investors to move out their monies from the stock market into much more stable things like cash or gold. Even if the war stops soon, economists do not believe that relief will come immediately, because the lingering impacts of supply chain disruptions will persist for well into a couple of weeks after the war has ended, which we hope it will be sometime soon. Now, what should you do in this regard? What should you do with this information, this wonderful information I've shared with you throughout this video? Costs are high right now. This is a good time to review your portfolio, to spend conservatively, to spend wisely, to rebalance your portfolio. If you're looking to buy the dip, if you're looking to buy stocks, value stocks at cheaper prices, look at your entry prices and see if they make sense for your long-term investment portfolio. If you're looking to rebalance your portfolio, now might be the best time to do it. But however, do your research. History is always backing things up. So the market is not going to stay down for so long. The market is not going to stay down for like millions and millions of years to come. So we hope the war ends soon. But in the meantime, now is the time to assess, reposition yourself for a much, much better future to come. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.